Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was released in 2014. It's directed by Matt Reeves and it's written by Mark Bumbach, Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver. And we have a cast including Andy Serkis, Toby Kebbell, Judy Greer, Jason Clarke, Gary Oldman, Kodi Smit-McPhee. Great cast, great performances. A better narrative than Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I watched that one a couple of days ago for the first time and I thought it was tremendously dull. So I went in with an open mind to this one. But I wasn't expecting much based on the previous film. But it is actually better. I feel like the previous film and this one could have just been one film. Because there's definitely a lot of slowness in this one. There's definitely a lot of padding. The film is over 2 hours. And I think maybe an hour and a half of it is valuable. So they easily could have made the previous film and this film one film. But I feel like that film and this one only exist to get us to the third film. War of the Planet of the Apes, which I'll be watching next. My assumption, and I'll talk about Dawn in a moment, but my assumption is that War of the Planet of the Apes is going to have an epic battle, and it seems like it's going to be what these two films have been leading up to. I could be wrong, but I will find out in due course. And I feel like that means they get a free pass to make this one not as interesting, because it's just the build-up to what I assume is going to be the bigger, better film. And I don't think any film should ever exist just to get us to the next film. And that's not to say the whole film is slow and boring, but it's definitely not great throughout. I do feel like it is existing purely to get us to the next film, but I will reserve judgment fully on that until I watch the next film. Basically, the humans are depleting, the apes have risen, and they are potentially at odds with one another, and they are potentially at war with each other, and obviously this is, well, I think it's pretty obviously leading up to War of the Planet of the Apes, but I won't say any more than that about that film. Honestly, this film doesn't really have a lot to offer in terms of interesting aspects of the narrative. We do have some okay-ish conversations between some of the characters. The apes do look great, the CGI is brilliant, and I like the characters of the apes in this. The human characters are tremendously boring. I don't care about them. I don't care what happens to them, which sounds mean, but I just think they're very, very dull. But the apes in this one wasn't the case in the previous film. But in this one, the characters seem better fleshed out. They seem a lot more interesting. They seem a lot more intelligent now, which is kind of what I expected to be the case. And certainly I enjoyed watching those characters. And there were a couple of good moments here and there. But in general, it doesn't really have a lot to offer. The narrative really isn't that interesting, and I do feel like it just exists to get us to the next film. I could be totally wrong. The next film could be a building block to get us to another one. I don't know, but I will find out at some point. But for now, I feel like Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is just a really slow narrative with a couple of decent moments. Yes, it's an interesting concept, but it's not as if this is the first film, or even the previous film is not the first film to raise the question of what would happen if there were more apes than humans, and if the apes were potentially more powerful than humans, because this is not, or these two films are not the only Planet of the Apes films. So I honestly don't think it offers anything unique, and I don't think the story is very good, but it's still better than the first film. The action is better, the apes are more interesting, the CGI is very good, and the performances are good as well. So it's an improvement on Rise of the Planet of the Apes, but I still found the narrative to be lacking, and unfortunately it does feel like this exists just to get us to the next film, and I don't know if that's the case. Maybe they released this thinking it was going to be this epic story that was visually engaging and a real battle of a film with action everywhere and characters at odds with each other. And yeah, there is a little bit of that, but not enough to make it a strong film. And I say all of this, on IMDb it has a total of 7.6 out of 10 across 498,000 reviews and ratings. So in general, my opinion is not a popular one. And that's okay. If people watch this and love it, that's absolutely fantastic. But for me, I just don't think it's very good. It's not terrible. It's not the worst thing ever. But the narrative is just so slow. And yeah, the apes are great, the CGI is great. I do feel like this is just paving the way for the next film, but I will confirm that theory when I get there, and I just don't understand the appeal. The concept's great, but unfortunately the execution of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes visually is great, the story not so much, The apes as characters, yes. The humans, a little bit boring. It's better than Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Maybe this is an upward trend. Maybe War of the Planet of the Apes is going to be absolutely amazing. I will go in with an open mind. But unfortunately, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, in terms of the story, was an average film at best. Visually, definitely above average. Undeniably above average in terms of the visuals. But for me, that's just not enough.